Me, name's Ethan, 29. I'm an HVAC technician. That's a fancy way of saying I crawl around in places people forget exist, fixing the machines that keep them from boiling in the summer and freezing in the winter. It's a dirty job. I come home covered in dust, grease, sometimes insulation that makes you itch for days. But it's honest work, and it pays well, really well. I'm the guy you call when your comfort is on the line. I solve real, physical problems. For the last 2 years, I lived with my girlfriend, Megan. She's 27, works in HR for some big, faceless corporation. Her job, as she described it, was optimizing human capital and fostering a culture of inclusivity. She spent her days in a climate-controlled office, writing emails, and sitting in meetings about synergy and empowerment. Our lives were a study in contrasts. I'd spend 10 hours on a commercial rooftop in the middle of July, wrestling with a 20-ton compressor unit, sweat dripping into my eyes, my hands calloused and cut. I'd get home, exhausted to the bone, just wanting a shower, a hot meal, and maybe an hour of quiet. I'd walk in, and she'd be on the couch, laptop open, looking mentally drained. Her version of a hard day was dealing with a passive-aggressive email chain or mediating a dispute about someone's choice of microwavable fish for lunch. Yet somehow, her exhaustion was always more valid, more profound than mine. "You don't understand, Ethan," she'd say. "The emotional labor I have to perform is immense. You just fix things with your hands." The condescension was subtle at first, little jabs disguised as observations. It slowly became the background music of our relationship. Our apartment was nice. I paid the rent. I paid the utilities. I paid for the groceries. Her salary, which was decent, was for her personal growth fund. This fund paid for online courses with vague titles, yoga retreats, and an endless stream of books about female empowerment and dismantling patriarchal structures. I never complained. I figured this is what you do when you're building a life with someone. You provide, you support. My mistake was thinking it was a partnership. In reality, I was the infrastructure, the foundation she stood on to reach for higher things. A typical evening would go like this. I get home around 7 p.m., looking like I've been through a wind tunnel filled with grime. She's already there, sipping white wine. "Rough day?" I'd ask. Unbelievable. We had a 3-hour seminar on unconscious bias. Some of the men in senior management just don't get it. It's like talking to a wall. I'd nod, too tired to engage. I just want to wash the day off me. "And how was your day?" she'd ask, but her eyes would already be back on her phone. "Hot. Replaced a condenser fan motor on the roof of a bank." "Oh, okay." That was it. My physical reality was boring to her. It was primitive. The conversations we did have were often lectures. She'd read an article online and suddenly become an expert. It was all about toxic masculinity. My quietness after a long day? That was me being emotionally unavailable, a classic symptom. My focus on solving problems instead of just talking about feelings. Textbook male fixation on solutions over empathy. My pride in my work, in being able to provide for us. That was me clinging to outdated patriarchal provider roles. I felt like I was being graded, and I was always failing. I remember one time, last summer I think, I had a particularly brutal week. Heat wave. Everyone's AC was dying. I worked 70 hours. Came home each night looking like a ghost. The money was incredible. I got a huge overtime check. Megan had been talking for months about wanting a new high-end laptop for her freelance consulting side hustle, which never seemed to actually happen. I took the check, went to the store, and bought the exact one she wanted, top of the line. I came home, and she was annoyed I hadn't texted her back for a few hours. I was on a roof with no reception. I surprised her with the box. She opened it. No smile. Just an analytical look. "This is the one with the smaller, solid-state drive," she said. "The other model had more storage." I just stood there, covered in filth, holding a receipt for over $2,000. "I can take it back," I said. "No, it's fine. I guess I'll just have to use an external hard drive. It's just less efficient." No thank you, no hug, just a critique of my purchasing decision. It felt like a punch to the gut. I walked away and took the longest shower of my life, just letting the hot water run, trying to wash off more than just the dirt. My dad, a retired plumber, noticed things weren't right. We were having a beer one Sunday afternoon in his backyard. He's a man of few words, like me. He just looked at me and said, "Son, you work too hard to come home to a second job." I didn't know what he meant at first. "The hardest job," he continued, "is trying to make someone happy who has already decided they won't be." That stuck with me. The change started a few months ago. It was subtle. Megan started going out for after-work drinks with the girls. More often. These drinks would last until midnight. She'd come home smelling of fancy cocktails and perfume, buzzing with an energy she never had for me. She would talk endlessly about this new place they found, a cocktail lounge downtown. The place had a vibe, she said, not like the simple bars I liked. She talked a lot about the bartender there. Not a bartender, a mixologist. His name was Tyler. According to her, Tyler wasn't just some guy who poured drinks. He was an artist. He had tattoos up his neck, a perfectly manicured beard, and a deep, soulful way of listening. He remembered her drink order. He'd make her special concoctions not on the menu. He'd listen to her complain about work, about me. "He just gets it," she told me one night. "He understands the female experience. He's a true ally." I remember thinking, a what? This guy who works for tips in a dark room is a true ally. I tried to picture it. Megan, in her nice corporate dress, sitting at a polished bar. This Tyler guy leaning in, looking serious, nodding as she talks about the patriarchy, all while he's probably just trying to get a good tip and her phone number. A cold feeling started to grow in my stomach. She started mentioning him in conversations more and more. Tyler said something so profound the other day. "I was telling Tyler about your job, and he thinks it's so authentic." That one really got me. Authentic. Coming from a guy who calls himself a mixologist. The arguments at home got worse. Everything I did was wrong. I'd leave a dish in the sink. You see, this is the problem. You just expect me to handle the domestic labor. I'd buy the wrong brand of almond milk. It's like you don't even listen to me. I'd fall asleep on the couch at 9:30 p.m. after a 12-hour day. We have no connection anymore. You're never present. I felt like I was going crazy. I was working my ass off to maintain our life, a life she seemed to enjoy the financial benefits of, while being constantly told I was the problem. I was a walking, talking personification of toxic masculinity, and she was the brave soul suffering through it. One evening, I tried to have a real conversation. I sat her down and said, "Megan, I feel like you're not happy with me, with us. What's going on?" She put on her HR face, calm, detached, a little bit condescending. "I'm glad you brought this up, Ethan. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection, and I've come to realize that my needs aren't being met in this relationship." It was like she was conducting a performance review. My performance review. "What needs?" I asked. "Tell me. I'll do anything." "It's not about doing things," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's about a deeper intellectual and emotional connection, a partnership of equals who challenge each other to grow." She talked for 20 minutes. It was a word salad of therapy speak and corporate jargon she'd picked up. She talked about her growth trajectory and my emotional stagnation. The subtext was clear. She was soaring, and I was an anchor holding her down. The guy who paid for the anchor chain, the ship, and the ocean it sailed on was now the anchor. The irony was thick enough to choke on. The final night came about a month after that talk. It was a Tuesday, I think. I came home earlier than usual. A job got canceled. The apartment was quiet. She was in the bedroom, packing a bag. Not a suitcase, but an overnight bag. My heart sank. "Going somewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't turn around. "Just staying at a friend's place tonight. I need some space to think." We both knew it was a lie. This was it. The moment it all comes down. I stood in the doorway, watching her fold her clothes with methodical precision. "So, this is how it ends," I said. "You just leave?" She finally turned to face me. Her expression was cold, resolute. There was no sadness in her eyes. There was pity. She pitied me. "It's not an ending, Ethan. It's a new beginning for me. I've given this relationship everything I have, and it's just not enough." I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every bill I paid, every meal I bought, every late night I worked so she could have her personal growth. I wanted to ask her what exactly she had given, but I didn't. I was too tired, too defeated. "I think we've just grown into different people," she said, delivering the classic line. "You're a good man, in your own way. You're stable. You're reliable. Some woman will be very happy with that someday." It was the verbal equivalent of a pat on the head. She was framing her departure as an act of mercy, as if she was setting me free. The final nail in the coffin was what she said next. "I need to be with someone who matches my energy, who operates on the same intellectual frequency. I'm sorry, but you just don't." She zipped up her bag, walked past me without making eye contact. I heard the front door open, then click shut. And then silence. I stood in the bedroom doorway for what felt like an hour. I looked around the room. Her stuff was still there, her books on the nightstand, her clothes in the closet, but the life of the apartment was gone. It felt like an empty shell. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch. The wine glass she'd been using was still on the coffee table. I picked up my phone. No texts, no calls. It was over, just like that. 2 years of my life, my effort, my money, erased in a 5-minute conversation filled with condescending cliches. She didn't just leave me. She judged me, found me wanting, and discarded me because I wasn't intellectual enough for her. The guy who literally keeps the lights on and the air cool was too simple for the woman who talks about synergy for a living. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the dark as the reality of the situation washed over me. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was a profound sense of injustice. I had played by the rules. I had worked hard. I had provided. I had supported her dreams. And my reward was to be told I was the problem, that I was holding her back. A few days later, she came by with a friend to get the rest of her things. She was cheerful, bright, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I stayed out of the way, just sat in the kitchen. I watched her pack her books, her clothes, her collection of inspirational quote mugs. She took the laptop. Of course she took the laptop. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "I hope you can understand, Ethan. This is for the best. I hope you find your own path to happiness." She smiled, a genuine, happy smile. I just stared at her. I couldn't find any words. She left, and this time, the silence was permanent. The next few weeks were a blur. Work was my only escape. I took every overtime shift I could get. Being on a roof in 100-degree heat felt better than being in that empty apartment. At least the work made sense. Problem, solution, effort, result. Life was no longer that simple. I lost weight. I barely ate. I just worked and tried to sleep. My dad checked in on me, brought me food, didn't say much, just sat with me and watched TV. It was what I needed. One day, a mutual friend let it slip. They'd seen Megan. She wasn't staying with a friend. She had moved in with Tyler, the mixologist. It all clicked into place. The late nights, the constant praise, the ally who gets it. She hadn't left me to find herself. She had left me for someone else. The monkey branch. I was the safe branch she held on to, while she reached for the next one. And once she had a firm grip, she let go of me without a second thought. The sadness I felt began to curdle into something else, something harder. It was a cold, quiet anger. Not the kind that makes you want to break things, the kind that makes you want to build something, to build yourself into a fortress she could never touch again. I looked around my empty, quiet apartment. For the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. It was mine, all of it. The quiet was mine, the space was mine, my time was my own, my money was my own. A switch flipped in my head. She didn't break me. She liberated me. She thought she was leaving a simple man behind in the dust. She had no idea what she had just unleashed. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a whole new chapter, one where I was the only author. The first thing I did was purge the apartment. I boxed up everything that reminded me of her. Photos, gifts, the little decorative things she'd bought that I never really liked anyway. I didn't throw them out. I put them in a corner of my storage unit, a tomb for a dead relationship, out of sight, out of mind. Then I took a hard look at my finances. With her gone, my expenses were slashed by more than half. No more funding for personal growth courses. No more expensive organic groceries that I didn't eat. No more surprise weekend trips she'd planned using my credit card. The numbers on my bank statements were shocking. I was making great money, but I'd been living like I was just scraping by. I suddenly had a massive surplus. For the first month, I just saved it. Watched the account grow. It felt good. It felt like control. Then I started investing. Not in stocks, but in myself. I hit the gym. Not to get huge or impress anyone, but just to burn off the anger and frustration. I started with just the treadmill, then weights. I found I liked the feeling of pushing myself physically, of being sore in a way I had chosen, not a soreness inflicted by a long workday. I started eating better. Simple stuff. Steak, eggs, rice, food that fueled my body for work and the gym. The physical changes were rapid. I dropped the soft weight I'd gained from years of comfortable complacency. My face thinned out. My work shirts started fitting better across the shoulders. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own body. Work became my focus, my craft. I wasn't just fixing units anymore. I was mastering them. I took advanced certification courses online at night, commercial refrigeration, complex zoning systems. My boss noticed. He started giving me the high-profile, high-commission jobs, the ones that required a brain, not just brute force. I bought a new truck, not a flashy one, but a solid, reliable workhorse, a new Ford F-150. I paid for a big chunk of it in cash. The feeling of driving that thing off the lot, a machine I had earned entirely on my own, was better than any praise she had ever given me. Life fell into a new rhythm. Wake up, gym, work, home, eat, study, sleep. It was simple. It was disciplined. It was peaceful. I didn't date. I didn't even think about it. The idea of opening myself up to someone again felt exhausting. I was building a life, a foundation, but this time it was just for me. I heard whispers about Megan through the grapevine. Our old mutual friends were awkward around me now. They'd say things like, "She seems happy." Her social media was a highlight reel of her new, enlightened life. Pictures of her and Tyler at art galleries, music festivals, poetry readings, captions filled with quotes about authentic living and soul connections. She made sure to post photos of him making her elaborate cocktails, captioning them, "Finally, with a man who understands that creativity is a love language." It was all a performance, a show designed to prove to the world, and probably to herself, that she had made the right choice, that she had upgraded. I felt a sting of something, but it wasn't jealousy. It was a kind of detached pity. She needed an audience to validate her happiness. My happiness was quiet, internal, and needed no witnesses. The months rolled on. Summer turned to fall, then winter. I was thriving. I was in the best shape of my life. My bank account was healthier than it had ever been, and I was respected at work. My peace was my prize. Then, about 8 or 9 months after she left, the first crack in her perfect narrative appeared. I got a text from an old mutual friend, one of the few who tried to stay neutral. "Hey man, hope you're doing well. Just a heads up, Megan's been asking about you." I just replied, "Okay," and left it at that. A week later, another text from the same friend. "She asked me if you were seeing anyone. Sounded kinda down." I didn't reply. The story started to trickle out in pieces. The mixologist artist wasn't much of a provider. Shocker. His bartending job was part-time, and his art didn't exactly pay the bills. He moved into her new, smaller, more expensive apartment. He didn't contribute to rent. He said rent was a patriarchal construct. The bohemian lifestyle was fun when someone else was paying for it. She was now funding his creative journey. Her salary, once dedicated to her own personal growth, was now supporting 2 people. The cracks got bigger. He lost his job. Creative differences with management was the official story. He started borrowing money from her. He was always about to land a huge gig. The romantic, soulful artist turned out to be a lazy, narcissistic man-child. The social media posts slowed down, then stopped altogether. The final piece of the puzzle came from a more gossipy source. Tyler had been cheating on her, not a one-time thing, a regular thing. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. He told her she was being possessive and trying to cage his free spirit. He accused her of having unresolved, toxic monogamy issues. He flipped her own pseudo-intellectual language back on her. He weaponized it. And then he left. Packed his bags and went to crash with the 19-year-old hostess from his old job. The karma was so potent, so perfectly symmetrical, it was almost poetic. She had left a provider for a performer. She had left a man who built things for a man who mixed things. She left stability for a vibe, and the vibe had a cost she couldn't afford. I felt nothing. No joy, no schadenfreude. Just a quiet, profound sense of order. The universe had balanced the books. A few more weeks went by. It was a cold evening, I remember that. I was just finishing up dinner. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" A pause. Then a small voice. "Ethan?" It was her, Megan. I didn't say anything. "It's me. I know it's been a while. I was wondering if we could talk." Her voice was different. The confident, condescending HR tone was gone. She sounded tired, defeated. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, my voice flat. "Please, Ethan, just 5 minutes. I made a huge mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake." I should have hung up. I know I should have. But a part of me, the part that needed closure, wanted to hear it. "Where are you?" I asked. She was at a coffee shop a few blocks from my apartment. I put on my jacket and walked over. Not for her, for me. I saw her through the window before I went in. She looked diminished. She was thinner, pale. The confident glow she had when she left was completely gone. She was just a woman, looking sad and cold in a brightly lit coffee shop. I walked in and sat down opposite her. She flinched, like she was expecting me to yell. I just waited. She started talking, a rambling, tearful confession. Tyler was a monster, a manipulator, a narcissist. He used her. He bled her dry financially and emotionally. She talked about how she had to cover all the bills, how he never lifted a finger, how he made her feel crazy for wanting basic respect. It was a masterclass in deflection. Everything was his fault. He was the villain. She was the victim. She was describing the exact life she had put me through, only on an accelerated timeline. The role reversal was staggering. I listened without interrupting. I just nodded occasionally. Finally, she got to the point. "I was so stupid," she said, looking me in the eyes, tears streaming down her face. "I had a real man, a good man who loved me, and I threw it all away for nothing, for a fantasy." She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I moved it away. "I think about you all the time," she whispered. "I miss you. I miss our life. I was wrong, Ethan. I was so wrong. Please, can we just try again? I'll do anything. I've learned my lesson." There it was, the crawl back, the desperate attempt to return to the safety and stability she had willfully destroyed. I let the silence hang in the air for a long moment. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw a stranger. The woman I had loved was gone. Or maybe she had never existed in the first place. I took a deep breath. "No, Megan," I said. My voice was calm, devoid of anger, devoid of emotion. It was the voice I use when I'm telling a client their compressor is shot and can't be repaired. Her face crumpled. "But why? People make mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance." And that's when I decided to give her the one thing she'd never given me, a clear, honest explanation. "You didn't make a mistake," I said, leaning forward slightly. "A mistake is when you take a wrong turn or buy the wrong kind of milk. What you did was make a choice. You weighed your options. You looked at me, at everything I did for us, at the life we had, and you decided it wasn't good enough. You bet that Tyler was a better man." I let that sink in. "And you lost your bet," I continued. "You're not coming back here because you suddenly realized you love me. You're coming back because your new branch broke. You're coming back because you're out of options. You're looking for a safe place to land." She started to protest. "That's not true. I do love you." "Let me finish," I said, holding up a hand. The authority in my voice surprised even me. She fell silent. "I work on HVAC systems. It's my job. When a critical component, like a compressor, fails, it's done. It's burned out. The internal wiring is fried. You don't try to patch it up with electrical tape and hope for the best. You don't give it a second chance. You replace it. Because the trust in that component is gone, if you put it back in the system, it will just fail again, and probably take other parts with it." I looked her right in the eye. "You were the compressor in our system, Megan, and you burned out. The trust is gone. If I let you back into my life, you'll just do it again the next time a mixologist tells you you have a beautiful soul." Her mouth was open, but no words came out. She was completely stunned. The HR queen, the master of communication, was speechless. She was finally hearing the unvarnished, unfiltered truth, without any of the therapeutic jargon she used to hide behind. "I'm not your safety net," I said, standing up. "My life is peaceful now. It's quiet. It's mine. You are not welcome in it." I put a $10 bill on the table for her coffee, a final act of providing. "Good luck with your personal growth," I said. Then I turned around and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. As I walked home in the cold night air, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I just felt closure. The book was closed. The system was repaired. I had learned the hardest, most valuable lesson of my life. Men don't give women like that a second chance, not because we are unforgiving. We do it because we are not stupid. Trust, once deliberately broken, can't be fixed. It can only be replaced. And I had replaced mine with a quiet, unshakable respect for myself.